We'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for everyone for coming. I hope you guys enjoyed this month's Trainer Connection. This one, we're just going to kind of be going over 10 things that I learned at a conference that I went to. And I do feel in some of the senses learn is a little relative because some of them were things that I already knew, but reiterating the importance of it. So I was able to go to the techlearn conference, and it was a virtual conference again this year, as most things have been, but it was a virtual conference. And it just had a lot of really good and interesting things in the world of instructional design, creating trainings, online environments. And so I just wanted to share some of the things that I've learned there. I went to a lot of great sessions, so unfortunately it would probably take a few hours to share everything. I have a lot of pages of notes and stuff, but if there is anything that you are interested in and you want to know if I learned anything about it, I'm happy to share at some point. Feel free to unmute or put in the chat any questions that you have. I want this to be an open dialogue, so please don't feel like you're interrupting because there is no such thing as interrupting. But we'll go ahead and get started. And the first thing, here we go, click on that. Creating animation can be fun and simple. So that was one of the things that we talked a lot about. I went to a lot of different sessions on animation. Some were not so simple, I will be perfectly honest, but there were a lot of options out there that were very simple. So I wanted to go over these three. So stop motion. Stop motion we had a session on, and it was really fun and interesting. Some of the pros with it, it was a very simple way to create videos. And that there were a lot of free apps to create videos. So depending on whether or not you use an Android, an Apple device, I would go to your Play Store, or I honestly don't know what it's called on Apple. So whatever it's called on Apple, I'm a Google person. Go on there, and there are lots and lots of free apps available out there. Basically, you just have to be able to take pictures and multiple pictures. And that is just what stop motion is. I know most of you are probably pretty familiar, with that. Gumby was one that they used as an example. So for those of you who remember Gumby is an example of stop motion. You're just taking a bunch of little pictures and putting all of those pictures together. That being said, because it is a bunch of little pictures, it can take some time in order to do that. You're looking at about 8 pictures just to show somebody taking like one step. So it can take a little bit of time, and you have to either be able to hold the camera super steady or have some sort of tripod or some type of equipment that you can set it on to keep that camera steady. So that's one of the big key features with it, and probably one of the biggest cons with it. As with almost anything, you can spend lots and lots and lots of money getting all kinds of fun and fancy things if you really decide to get into stop motion. But at the simplest, something just to hold the camera steady on, just to be able to take those pictures is key. Adobe was one of the next ones that we talked about with making animation. And there are just lots and lots of great tools in the Adobe Cloud. There's animation, that's actually what it's called. It's called Animate. Character animation are a couple of them that are available. I think it's the character animation is actually really neat because it uses your webcam to make the character move. So if you have it up on the screen and you're wiggling your head back and forth, the character on the screen that you're recording will also wiggle back and forth. So it has a lot of really neat features to it. The cons are it can be a bit pricey. Adobe is not necessarily known for being super cheap. So it is something that can be a little bit pricey, but maybe check it out. And they do have free trials out there to see if it's something that you'd be interested in. And there can be a bit of a learning curve. Some systems out there that you use are very user friendly, and not that Adobe isn't, but there is a bit of a learning curve with it. I haven't really used character animator a lot, but I do use some features of Adobe. And my best friend is Google. Like I just type in the search bar, how do I do this? And there are lots of tutorials out there. So if you ever decide to do Adobe, there are tons and tons of tutorials out there. And then PowerPoint. Most people have PowerPoint, and so it is just something that is included as part of your PowerPoint. There's a little animations tab at the top, if you've ever noticed. Most people use it to make, words fly in and appear on the screen, but you can actually use all of those animations to make things move. So you can create your own animation video out of that PowerPoint. I used the animation out of PowerPoint to do some of my movements on here. So when you see things move around, that's because I was using that animate feature. It's not too difficult to use and not too difficult to create some basic videos. It can be a little bit complicated to just make some higher quality animations. So it can require a lot of layering on top of each other. Which isn't necessarily difficult, but if you're not used to layering and moving layers around, then it can be a little bit complicated to do. And the other thing with Animate is it can very easily get cheesy. So you do have to be very careful. The guy who was presenting on using PowerPoint to animate, first off, he had the most amazing voice and I could just listen to him all day long. If he ever wants to do more trainings, I will take them. But he was like, look, you have all of these great things. Don't use any of these here, because they have a high cheese factor kind of that they can quickly just not look professional at a point. So those are some couple of easy ways that you can create some videos. Go back. All right. The next one, change your question, change your story. So this, once again, was a really good session. It was about e-learning makeover, and the three most important things that they talked about were the three questions that you typically ask when you're creating a training. This was mostly in working with like a subject matter expert, but just working with like a program or anything like that where you're creating a training. The three questions we typically ask, but we should change them to these three questions. So the first one, we usually ask, what do I want them to know? And instead of asking that, we should ask them, what do I want them to do? So not so much what they want to know, but what do you want them to do? The second question, what questions should I ask? So thinking about like, especially if you're doing a web-based training and you're talking about like quizzes, reflections, those types of things, we shouldn't be asking what questions should we ask. We should ask, how can I have them practice? So talking about taking those skills and putting them into real life application. And then instead of asking, what do I want my slides to say? We should ask, what visual supports my message? So not focusing so much on what is on the slide per se, but what visual will get your message across. And talking about visuals to get your message across, this slide in itself, it was a work in progress, and I'm still not 100% sure that I think it's the perfect way that it could be. But when I was thinking about what the visual I wanted to support my message, I really wanted the three questions that you should be asking to be really bold and bright and to show how it's a progression. And so what visual would support that message versus what do you want those slides to say? All right, ooh, this one's a fun one. So use simple design features for color and font. So with color, you should limit your color to around 4 different colors for presentation, and make sure the colors are compatible. And let me show you. So this is, and this link to this website is available on the Online Trainer Connection community, so you do have access to it. But this is the Adobe color wheel. And I have so much fun, honestly, just playing around with it and making the colors move around. But you see the giant wheel in the middle, and you can move the colors, and it gives you 5 colors that are compatible with one color. So if you are like, I really want a blue color or purple color, you can kind of go down to that color and it will give you ones that are compatible to it. When you are putting the color to change, like the color of your font or any graphics, you always have an option where you can enter a number, which usually starts with a hashtag, or on the red, green, blue scale, these are the numbers down here. I don't know if they're pretty small, so you might not be able to see them. It just tells you how much percentage or how much part of each of those colors there are. Those are 2 different ways that you can, when you're doing a font color or a graphic color, 2 different ways that you can change the color. With this Adobe color wheel, you have a couple of different options. So you have the monochromatic. So if you want them to all kind of be in that same little color, it's still 5 colors, but it's kind of like ombre, where it moves from one shade to the next. Triad, complementary. I'm not sure the difference between split complementary and double split complementary. So if anybody knows, but they're just different options to get some different colors that match together and just make really cohesive images and graphics. So just some different ways to get colors. And it's just fun to play around. I really just have a lot of fun making that wheel move around. So that's probably my favorite thing to do about that. And then also with color, I have this actually extension. It's the color picker extension on through Google. I don't know if you can install it on any browser, but I have it installed on my Google Chrome browser. It's a free extension. And then you'll see if you do the color picker, it says add to Chrome. And when you add it to Chrome, you can have, I don't know if you can see that little circle right up here. It makes it an extension. And so what it is you just click on that, it pops this up. This probably isn't the best website. So it pops that up, and then you just, oh goodness gracious, it's not working for me today. You hover over is what it is. There we go. And it will tell you, see, there it goes. So it'll tell you what color it is. So if you're on like a website and you're like, oh my gosh, that's the prettiest shade of blue right here. You take this extension, you use the little eyedropper, and I'm pointing at it like you can actually see my fingers, but over here, this number, once again, talking about changing the color, this is the number for that color. So if you have a specific color that you're like, oh, I really like that color, I really need that color, an extension like this, a color picker, would help you find that color. And then talk about that red, green, blue scale. Those are those numbers there. Most of the time when you put in numbers for colors, it gives you either of those 2 options to put them in. So, and that's just another fun one to play with. I will say you have to X out. It took me forever to figure that out. You have to actually, if you're using the color picker one, once you open it up, if you don't click X, it just keeps following you around on the screen. So learn from my mistakes. Don't keep doing that and wonder why in the world it's following you around everywhere. All right. So those are just some couple of options for color. So really fun ones to play with. So fonts, when you're using font, same thing, you want to use similar font and similar font sizes throughout the training. So you don't necessarily want to use 16 different fonts on every single slide. Try to keep them all the same or very similar in their features. And then same thing with sizes. If you have the headings, like on handouts, if you have the heading for one section in size 14, you probably don't want to have the rest of the sections in size 20, keeping them all the same. It just keeps that cohesiveness. It makes our brains happy. And you want to just make sure that they're easy to read. Some fonts are just not very easy to read, like they kind of run together, or they're really big and bold and you can't differentiate between the letters. My personal favorite font, if anybody actually cares, my favorite font is Century Gothic. I've had people, Hans, for those of you who know Hans, call it the Dawn font because I use it so much. So sometimes you just find a font that you like to use and you use that one a lot. It is important to remember that some fonts can have a negative association. So there are some fonts that have been overused. That like Comic Sans is one that it was very cutesy and then everybody used it. And so sometimes when fonts get overused, they start to have a negative association with them. Or depending on your audience, Comic Sans might be a fine font to have if you're writing something for early childhood professionals, but not necessarily for like the CEO of a company, keeping that in mind, keeping that professionalism in mind. Also within keeping your audience in mind, keep accessibility in mind. If that is something that you're focusing on, you do want to make sure that to be considered accessible, that the fonts are clearer and more print-like. So just making sure that you're very careful with those if that's something that you're looking at. Oh, I made it angry when I exited out. There we go. All right, so games. So I know we all know games are fun, but this training just reiterated it. Games are extremely important, and that interactivity is extremely important, and it increases that retrieval. So if we want participants to be able to retrieve information more easily, adding some sort of game to it. Games can also be used on your end as like a needs assessment. So you can create games where the card games where they have to organize based on how much they know about a topic. Like I know a lot and put a card over here. I know a little, put a card over here. There were several options like free versions and some not so free versions of creating games. Referring once again, there were so many resources, I couldn't include them all, like to pull them all up during the session. But once again, on that online trainer connection community, we have links to most of these, most everything that I'm talking about. And if we're missing anything, just let us know and we'll get it put up there. Julie was awesome and already got most of those links up there. So they should be available right now if anybody wanted to look at them. Dulst was one, D-U-L-S-T. And I believe it was a free one. And I think it was Card Games Simulator was another one that was a free one that you can make card games. There were a couple of not free options. I think Game Stack was one that was not free. I'm not sure the cost of it associated with it though. But also PowerPoint. If you're using PowerPoint, you can create kind of where I've been doing these back arrows. You can link things within a PowerPoint and create a pseudo game, basically. So you can have all of these links like a Jeopardy board, just as an example. You can have all of the links up, click a box and have it link you to a slide that has information on it or a question on it. And then you can click again to go back to the main screen. And that's actually what I've set up on here to go back and forth between that main page and then each of these individual pages. So you can use things like PowerPoint to create games if you wanted to as well. As with pretty much about everything, there are about 1 million options that were not mentioned at this conference. So my favorite thing to do, once again, is Google. Like it's my BFF. Like I use it a lot, and I use that search engine a lot. Using the words free can help, but also when you're talking about tech things, using the word open source is a little bit better to help narrow down some of your responses. The difference is when you say free, a lot of times you'll get those freemium websites that might have like a basic free package where you can get some things for free and then like an additional paid version or pay per use type of thing. If it says open source is just jargon, meaning that it's open. Anybody and everybody can use it. It's free for everybody. So sometimes if you use the word open source online games, you can have a little bit better options. Sometimes with open source though, once again, it gets a little bit more into that techie. You don't have that company who's taking it and taking away a lot of the code and making it more user-friendly. So sometimes, but not always, it's not as user-friendly. All right. Ooh, this one is my favorite one. So be weird. It is perfectly fine to be weird. I was so excited to attend this training and get validation for all of my weirdness. So basically, that session was on the neuroscience behind it. And the neuroscience says our brains like anything that is new and interesting, and weird things are new and interesting. So your brain loves to find those weird things. The person who did this, her company was called Super Mega Boss. I will probably forever remember that because of the title, because it is just a fun, weird title. The main thing to keep in mind, though, when you're being weird is the objective, the right place, and is it relevant and useful? So what is the objective? Why are you being weird? Why do you want to incorporate that weirdness? Are you incorporating it for a purpose, or are you just incorporating it just because? So as with everything, there should be a reason behind it. And then the right place. Is this the right place to get weird? The person who was doing this session, she shared a picture of her dressed up in a turtle costume from something that she did. And she was like, she did say at that point, she was like, maybe I shouldn't have worn the turtle costume. Like, is this the right place? But she was like, I wouldn't have worn the turtle costume if it was the first time I was doing something. You don't go to your first day on a new job wearing a turtle costume. You do still have to make sure, is this the right place? Is it, sometimes you need to be very slow about incorporating your weirdness so people don't just shut you down and don't think that you are competent. And then how can you be weird, but just making sure that you're still relevant and useful? Once again, going back into that objectives, what is the reasoning behind this? Creative is not a noun. This was from a keynote speaker, Austin Kleon, I think was his name. And it was really neat. And so he talked a lot about the term creative people and how that term implies that there are people who are creative and there are people who are not creative. However, creative is not a noun. Anybody can be creative. Creative is a verb. Creative is an act of doing. He had a quote from John Cleese, and it was, creative is not a talent. It is a way of operating. So creativity is a verb. It's something you do and less of something that you have. And so I really like that. And he went through like a list of 10 reasons why and how you can be creative, and how it's, once again, how it's not a noun, how it's an act of doing, an act of being. And I did create a little infographic with those highlights. And once again, guess where they're at? They're in the online community. So I have a little infographic in there that goes over those key highlights of how you can be a creative person, even if you think you are not a creative person. Okay. Have fun with pictures. So pictures are a lot of fun. I will add the disclaimer, I did not create this picture that I found. I did do a image search and it was on the Creative Commons, so it was perfectly appropriate to share. And images are just a lot of fun. And it's very easy to play with pictures and very easy to edit images, even if you don't think that you have those tech skills to do that editing. Photos can be edited to fit your need. So it could be something as simple as changing the color of an icon so that it suits your color scheme better. It could be adding a little speech bubble. So maybe I wanted this girl on top of the turtle to be talking, adding a speech bubble into that. It can be very, very simple. You can use it to enhance stock photos. So if you have these stock pictures that you like, but you want to add a background or you want to add something to it or take something away, it's very easy to edit those out. And you can also remove backgrounds. That's probably one of my favorite things to do, and probably something that I do the most often with an image, is I will use, it's the 3D paint, which comes as part of, like when I have an image just saved, whatever, I honestly, this is something I don't know, whatever I have on my computer that uploads the images. When I go to edit, one of the options is edit as 3D picture. And there's a way that you can just make the background transparent. So you can set the back, so you can take that background out and then just put that picture on top of anything without having like that white box behind it blocking out some of those things. So it's a really easy thing to do. On your phone, there are a lot of editing tools. Like Google Snapseed is one that you can just download right on your phone, take a picture, do some quick edits on it. Photoshop is part of the Adobe Cloud. So if that's something that you're interested in, that's something that you might want to look into, and it can do a lot of editing possibilities within that. GIMP, G-I-M-P is another one that you can edit photos with. I haven't used that one a lot, so I'm not super familiar with it, but that is an option. And then just once again, Word and PowerPoint. They have on Word and PowerPoint, you have that little pictures option and you can upload pictures. There's all kinds of stock images. And then there's icons. There's also, gosh, I forget what it's called on there, but they're just people. There is a transparent background and it's just all kinds of different people and all kinds of different poses. And some are even where you can add in, like they're holding like a paper up and you can add words onto the paper. So even just as simple as Word and PowerPoint, and they can all be saved into an image. And so that's really the fun thing about it. I feel like I was going to say something else, but I totally forgot. So move on. So this was a really interesting thing. So Google researchers set out to determine the secrets to effective teams at Google. So this was related to a workplace environment. However, it directly relates back to trainings, in my opinion. So in their research, they discovered what matters less is who is on a team, but how that team worked together. So when you're thinking about a training, it's not so much who is attending the training and who is participating, but it's how you're working together. And Project Aristotle was the name of the project. It found 5 different components that made an effective team. And in order of importance, they are psychological safety. That was the most important thing. An individual's belief that it is safe to take risks in the face of being seen as ignorant, incompetent, negative, or disruptive. So basically, they feel confident that no one will embarrass them or punish them for admitting a mistake, asking a question, or offering a new idea. And in thinking about online training, especially with webinars, if you don't feel safe to say something, you're not going to speak up. So having that psychological safety was number 1. Second was dependability. Members reliably complete quality work on time. Third was structure and clarity, understanding of job expectations, the process for fulfilling expectations, and consequences of not fulfilling expectations. Meaning, finding sense of purpose in the work. I definitely, when talking about web-based trainings, that to me, that practical application, that transfer of learning, that sense of purpose within what they're doing. And then impact, the subjective statement that their work is making a difference. And so that is what the Project Aristotle found. And Rachel put in chat, Adobe Cloud has a monthly fee if you're interested in using it. She's paying about $11 a month for it. So just FYI. Thank you, Rachel. And then just some general facilitation tips. So throughout the session, these weren't necessarily in any specific session in itself, but just some tips, some things that people said. So cameras, I know cameras are a big thing. Getting people to turn their cameras on can be hard when you're doing a training. It's important to remember though, it's okay. So if they don't have their camera on, it's perfectly fine. Some people do not have their cameras on because they don't have the ability to have their cameras on. They might not have, a webcam on their computer, or they just might not be in a place where they could turn it on. Maybe they're doing it in their car, or something along those lines. So sometimes they just don't have that ability. Some ways that you can encourage participants to turn their cameras on. So as they're joining and they have their camera on, thanking them just for having that camera on. Sometimes that simple statement lets other people know, oh, hey, I should probably turn my camera on without feeling singled out. And then thanking them for having it on. When they go into breakout rooms and you're explaining the instructions, just remind them that it is polite to turn on their cameras in their breakout room if they are able to do so. I know a lot of times that's the big, like in breakout rooms, people will go in and try and figure out if people are actually there because they may or may not be chatting or they may or may not have their cameras on. So just letting them know, like, hey, it's polite to turn your camera on. If you can't turn it on, just make sure that you're using the chat feature, that you're communicating. Music. So using music throughout the training can just provide a great way to break that silence. It can provide some energy and just be fun. So at the conference, they used music at the beginning of all of the sessions. So it was really nice. So like when you're kind of in that little bit of waiting limbo for it to start, they had some music playing. I think they also did the playlist based on what the presenter wanted. So I think the presenter got to choose what song they came on to. And so it was really neat and did provide a lot of energy. The only thing that was a little bit weird about it was we couldn't log on until like literally a minute before the session started. So sometimes you would get on and then the music would just stop because it was only a minute before the session started. So that was a little bit awkward sometimes, not always, just sometimes it was a little bit awkward. But it's a great way to, during breaks. So you can play music during breaks while people are supposed to be working on activities. You can use it in timing. So if you're giving them 5 minutes to do something, you can have some sort of song that plays for 5 minutes. And then just as part of closing too. So thinking about having it in the opening, you can also have it in that closing time as well. And then encouraging. So you want to encourage and foster participation with what you do and what you say. So having your camera on as people are joining is one way you as a trainer can foster that participation and encourage people to be there. If they see you, they're more likely to turn their camera on. They're going to feel more engaged with that training because they're physically able to connect with you. Let's see, welcoming people by name when they join in, encouraging people to chat if they can't unmute. Sometimes it's just not possible to unmute. Or sometimes it does get a little bit weird. Sometimes I don't like to unmute in trainings because I feel like I'm interrupting. If it were face-to-face, I probably wouldn't feel that way. It's just kind of that dynamic with the web-based training. So just encouraging people, letting them know it's perfectly fine. If you don't want to unmute or you can't unmute, put that information in the chat and let them know that you're seeing that information as well so that they know that what they're putting in there is getting seen and read. And then when you're asking a question and you're wanting to encourage a response by allowing time, this is really hard to do sometimes. Once again, talking about things that I struggle with, when you ask that question and then you just don't get any response and it's all quiet and nobody's saying anything. And it might have only been 2 seconds, but in your mind, it's been about 3 minutes or so and nobody's saying anything. It can be very hard for the presenter. Time is not quite the same, in the online universe. But one thing you can do, a simple task, is just ask a question, get your beverage, take a drink, and then put it back down. It kind of forces you to not talk. You can't say anything if you've got something in your mouth, hopefully. And it gives you, it's not necessarily that full recommended 45 seconds, but at least it's a little bit of time to kind of help with that and help you as the presenter not feel like that silence is awkward. It's not awkward anymore if it's there because you're taking a drink. So I'm going to probably use that one a lot, just an FYI. And then being there. Most important, you need to be there. Talking about that psychological safety, being present in video form from the beginning, showing that you're open to questions and communication, and then providing information about how they can reach out to you after the training or if needed. So just being there. Once again, all these things that you probably would have done face-to-face, just putting them in that virtual form. And last one. Don't go on and on. So cut out that fluff. Don't keep going on and on. And it does bear repeating often. And I know that you've probably heard it about 1,000,000 times from 1,000,000 different places. Just remove that fluff, remove that extra. You know, more is less. And creativity is knowing what to remove. And we, like I said, we're all guilty of it. We have so much information that we want to share. We were like, oh, I got to tell them this. We got to do this. We got to talk about this. They need to know this. We just try to cram as much information in as possible in our limited amount of time. So when planning trainings, you need to identify what they need to know and what is good to know. And if it is good to know, cut it out. That's that fluff. It's not something that is necessary for that training. If you visually need something to help you with that, you can literally write everything down and draw a line between the things that are just good to know and only focus on the need to know. Or you can highlight the things that you want to share and just leave the other things blank. Whatever you need to do to just help you cut that fluff out, cut those extras out. I had to cut out a lot from this so that I wouldn't keep going on and on and on and just sharing my 82 pages of notes with you guys. So cutting that fluff out and focusing on what they need to know versus the things that you want them to know. All right. And I just realized I made that go back to the wrong spot. So talking about doing fun animations, make sure you have it go to the right spot at the end. All right, so this is the time. I know that we've had a few comments in chat. Thank you guys for sharing that. And we want to hear more. So first off, are there any questions? Is there anything that, I know I went through things pretty quickly to make sure that we had time to cover everything. But I want to make sure if there's any questions or concerns that you guys had, that we answer those. We've got a couple more things that we're going to share. Before you leave, make sure that you put in chat at least one thing from today that we covered that you want more information on. So something that we didn't cover enough for your purposes or for your needs, put that information in chat so that we can have that. We might not get to address it today, but if we don't, we are definitely going to pull that chat and we'll use that for future planning and also just for like whether or not information to share with everyone. So does anyone have any questions they want to ask right now? Okay, apps in Mac, yes. Are there any on here right now? Are there any Apple users, Mac users that have lots of great apps that they use? I do apologize that is not my strong suit. I'm Google, sorry. If anyone has anything right now.
Adobe Creative Suite is available on Mac and PC. So all the Adobe stuff is available that way. And the Google Snapseed is also available on iDevices in addition to Androids.
Awesome. Thank you. Usually with the word Google in front of it, it doesn't usually correspond. All right.
I'll just reiterate that when you are downloading anything, just make sure that you do choose Mac or PC because it's just very important. I've made that mistake once and I'll never make it again.
The things you don't know are issues until you find out they're an issue.
And there's a couple comments, Dawn. The animations
Yeah.
are very interesting to people. Yes.
I love the animation ones too, which is probably why I signed up for all of the sessions, and I really wanted to
Tell them about Doodly, Dawn, because I know you love Doodly.
Doodly. I do love Doodly. So Doodly, let me pull it up. So
I found this app and shared it with Dawn, and then she took it further than I had ever used it. So
Ash, hold on, that's just going to be the boring website. Let me pull up my desktop app. So Doodly is basically it. Yeah, it's, I don't know why I didn't think about mentioning Doodly when I was doing this. Oh, good. I didn't actually know if that was my password that was saved in there or not. So Doodly is it's basically you can create like the whiteboard or the chalkboard. I couldn't think what that word was. The chalkboard type videos. So here is, I'll show this one. Oh, I don't think I have my sound set. You won't be able to hear the sound, but this is just a video I made for a training that we're doing. And so, yeah, it's this whiteboard app. And so it just goes through this, fast forward. So I'm just fast forwarding through it, so I know it looks weird. So yeah, so it is a whiteboard video that you can create or a chalkboard video that you can create. And it's a lot of fun to play around with. You can get those animations up where the people are writing or drawing things in, taking your pictures, those stock images that you have, you can upload. While these are all black and white, you can do color in here as well. And these are actually just pictures that I created. Like I used Microsoft. This was, I think in icons was like drop or drip, I think is what I typed to get this, and saved it as an image so that I could upload it into here. And you just create these just fun little videos where it adds things in. I guess that was probably a pretty boring one to show. Just close the wrong thing down. But yeah, it's a lot. It's a fun thing to play with. That one was really short and not very exciting. Oh my gosh, sorry. If you want to know how to address an envelope, I did that for a class. Here we go, we'll do that one. In case anyone doesn't know how to address an envelope, we'll go over this. I guess I should say the preface for this was I created this for a college class that I'm taking, and we were teaching people how to address an envelope.
We can't hear you, Dawn. Yeah, I can't hear Dawn. Vicky, I see your comment in the chat. In the future, more training on changing and adding backgrounds. And I don't know if you're on our Facebook page, but I know I shared this week's Toolbox Tuesday is actually a slide site where there's over 200 different templates that you can download that would give you different PowerPoint backgrounds. Or were you meaning backgrounds of photos? I see Dawn. I can't hear Dawn. With photo backgrounds. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Now I can. Yes, you're back.
All right. Sorry about that. I think whenever I played that and it had audio, it got angry with me. So let me share my screen again. So yeah, I love anything and everything about the creating the pictures and the videos and all of that fun stuff. So that may be something we'll have to look at more in the future for sure. So, all right, what did I miss in chat? Sorry. Anything? Yeah, Canva, Rachel. Yes, I use Canva a lot too. That one is a lot of fun. Canva is a free, it's considered a freemium. So like it has a free version and then you can pay. I have never paid for anything on Canva. So there are a lot of options that don't require payment on there. But you can create presentations on there, pictures on there, Zoom backgrounds. I think that's how this Gobble Y'all one, I made that one on Canva. So it has a lot of different options available in there as well.
I did share in chat the link to the trainer's toolbox too. We have tons of links to all different sorts of interactive tools for trainings, as well as photo and video editing tools, etc. So that's a spreadsheet I update regularly with new resources. So that's a good one to bookmark.
And then just so that everyone can make sure they have it on their calendar, we do have a special event in January on January 13th from 1 to 3. It's going to be, the topic is going to be compassion fatigue, and it's actually going to be presented by Dr. Larry Iverson. So just wanted to make sure you will get more information and more details much closer, we're still about 2 months out from that, but you'll get more information closer to that date, but just so that you can go ahead and have it on your calendar. It will definitely be a wonderful event. And our next trainer connection will not actually be until February 2022. And when I was typing that was so hard to type those numbers in. I don't feel like it should be 2022. Then we hope that everyone has a safe and healthy holiday, and that we'll see you again at the next trainer connection. And just to make sure that if you guys want to connect with us, we have the Facebook page. You can contact your trainer coaches and speak with them via email or phone or Zoom. And then we have the online community where we store all of the resources and information from the trainer connections. And I think at this point we've got, is it like a year and a half worth of stuff, a year's worth of stuff?
At least.
At least. Yeah, we have a lot of information on there from pretty much since we've been doing the trainer connections virtually. So if you ever want to watch our evolution of our connections, you can start from the very beginning. And Renee asked about the connecting with the online community. So this is the online community, but here is the link right here. So if you go onto it, this is what it'll look like. And it has a link once again to that toolkit, the toolbox that Julie shared in the chat. And then all of these over here, all those are all of the connections that we have on here. So you can see that there are a whole bunch of them on here. So I think in one of them, I think it may be there's an app for that. I do talk about Canva and we do talk about some techie things in there. So or maybe it was in the using technology. In one of those, I know that I have talked about Canva before. So if you are bored and want to go through all the trainer connections and find which one that is, I know that I talked about it. In that. And then this will be all the information. So when you go on, once we get the recording up, the recording for each of the connections is on here, and then just additional resources. So information that we talked about this time. And then there's a discussion forum. So if you want to ask questions, there's the opportunity for you to do that, or you can email Julie and she'll get it posted and answered for you. Well, that is everything. Everyone is still too quiet. Once again, I don't like quiet like that. I struggle greatly with that in trainings. And I don't think however many trainings I attend that tell me silence is okay, I'm going to struggle with that in a non face-to-face world. So just an FYI.
And there were a couple comments on Christy loved the need to know versus the good to know.
Awesome.
Yes, and then Sherry really liked your sip of water technique for asking a question and kind of allowing time for the response.
Thank you. Yes, I thought that one was a really fun and neat one too. It's the simple things you don't think about, and then somebody tells you and you're like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. Let's go back to this to make sure everyone has. So you are free to go. I hope everyone, you're free to stay too if you want to hang out with us. We're fun people. But if you would like to leave, you're welcome to leave. Feel free. If you have any questions, anything you need, let us know, put it in chat, stick around, or email your coach after today.